Hallo Freunde, willkommen zurück zu .NET API Review. Not that you can tell because APIReview.net is down. Um, I'll get it back up later. It'll probably come up on its own once build is over, but I'll work on it at some point. Nevertheless, I did capture an agenda today, and so let's go ahead and get started. First up is tracing configuration similar to Metrics Builder 100317.
Yeah, so hello. This one is to fill the gap. We now have both logging and metrics configurable through app configuration, but it's not the case for traces so far. And we got a request from Aspire team that they would appreciate to have it all lined up. So we decided to add public API very similar to metrics. It's actually one mirror to add configurability for tracing as well. And now it was all blue. Well, blue is nice. Okay, it's back. So uh, there are two top level facing methods. These are add tracing on the iTracing builder. You'll get to the builder later. Those are counterparts to metrics. So you have add metrics. Here you have add tracing. One is without the callback. The second one is with the callback if you want some configuration on the iTracing builder, and that's pretty much it. Then in the system diagnostics, it's actually a lower level of this whole feature. We added the iActivity source factory, again a counterpart for the metric factory, and its only goal is to create activity source. So the point is that the activity sources will be now part of the DI object creation. And this actually is enhanced by the activity source factory extensions, the create method. You see the next. Basically, it's just to create the activity source with the specified name, version, and tags. It's again similar to how metrics work. Then we had to do a small change on the activity source because this activity source is disposable, and we are going to cache these instances in the factory. So we need to prevent a situation when someone dispose an activity source for everyone. So we will basically add a virtual method dispose with the classic parameter of disposing, and with the activity sources that we will make, it will actually inherit this activity source and just make it a no-op. Uh, and there will be another internal method that will do the disposing when the whole container is about to dispose. And the other thing is that we edit the scope. Again, it's the same idea like with metrics. The scope is just the factory that created the activity source. So then we can check it and see if the activity source is actually created by us or by maybe another application in the same process. Uh, We had to add the scope into activity source options as well, because that's how the activity source is made. And the last part here in the system diagnostics is the activity listener. We added a new instance method there, and this method will refresh the sources that this listener listens to, because when we have it configurable and the configuration can actually change on the fly, it's possible that the activity listener will lose interest in a particular source or will need to start listen to another source. That's the whole purpose of this method. When the listener is disposed, this method will be a no-op. Could you please go a bit lower? So that was the lower level, and now the higher level in the extensions libraries. We added a new namespace called tracing. In this namespace, the first part is the iTracing builder. It's really the builder working through extension methods. So on the builder itself is just the service collection. Then there is an iActivity listener interface, and this listener is there to allow users to add listeners through the DI instead of this static mechanism on the activity source itself. It was actually another request for this feature to make this activity source and activity listener configuration more DI friendly. So you see that there is a name that's specific because we need it for the configuration to be able to say what listener should listen to and which one. But otherwise, all the properties are pretty much matching the properties on the activity listener in the system diagnostics. So we will basically take it and load the activity listener under the hood. Then we have an enum with activity source scope. This is again a counterpart to the metrics scope. There is unspecified scope and then a global one. The global scope means the activity sources that are created by the constructor, and the local are the activity sources made by the factory by our um, DI. So if the scope is the factory that we have in DI and it is local, then it's the activity source we want. So that's the point in here. The next is a tracing rule. Can we go a bit lower, please? So this tracing rule again is a counterpart to metrics rule. We have the activity source name, the activity name, listener name, and then the scope that we already talked about, and the last one is enabled. So users can say, this listener should be disabled in general or disabled for like this activity or this activity source, etc. The next one are tracing options that are really just an envelope for the rules. And if you go a bit lower, there are the extensions. There are just extensions for adding listeners. One for adding it by with generic. Another one with a functor. The last one, if you already have an instance, then you have a way to clear all listeners from the builder. And then for convenience methods to enable tracing and disable tracing for the sources and listeners and activities you want if you prefer code first. The last but not least is the add configuration if you want to set some special configuration part to configure the builder. It's again similar to how metrics work in this respect. So, any questions?
Well, I'm going to start with, has this ecosystem learned that interfaces are bad yet and wants to replace these interfaces with classes?
What interfaces?
Like
The source and
yeah,
stuff. I mean,
eye
we're
tracing
covering
builder, I
meter
assume
here.
there's only actually one builder. I activity listener, I assume there's actually only one listener. I tracing, but like, how many of these
The source.
interfaces should be interfaces
Well,
and how many of them should be classes?
okay. So the eye tracing builder actually follows the metrics. I think the idea is that you basically can implement it by anything under the hood. But if you prefer to have it a method, well, uh,
Right, because
it's
you're going
doable.
to get some concrete tracing builder when you call tracing service extensions dot add tracing. Um, is that is there a realistic expectation that someone builds their own? If no, then just make it a class and not an interface. If yes,
Well,
maybe it should be a base class and not an interface. Uh, yeah.
well, it would be consistent with the other options that we have, right?
Sorry, I understand why that's a good starting point, uh, but interfaces cause problems more than classes do. So the question is, has this space learned that all the interfaces they added were a mistake and that we should start correcting it now? Or do we just keep copying the pattern?
Okay, okay. I'm interested what kind of problems we can think after the meeting, I guess, to not prolong it.
Well, like, you can't
I
add
mean, I
methods
don't
to
think
them.
they're. I mean, it's a loaded question. I don't think people have really complained about the interfaces in Meter. I will say what people have complained about, Toba's missing, is just like, why does it exist in general if there's all these like static APIs? I know when working on like the MCP SDK, there was, we have meters, and we have extension methods. It's like BI aware. And there's like a question of like, should we use the meter factory? And I'm like, probably it exists. Like we use it all throughout ASU.NET Core and so forth. But for the most part, we've not used it, and people haven't complained. So there's just like, I think there's some question about the utility in general, but I don't think anyone has complained about the fact that it's an interface. It is kind of useful for testing and stuff, for what it's worth.
Yeah.
Like
The problem here is if we are going to add anything to this interface in the future, this will be a big problem if we have interfaces. Because we're still supporting the down levels and we cannot extend the interface. So at that time, we have to create a new interface. So I'm seeing the two sides here. I mean, in general, about general rule for me, I agree with Jeremy about try to use abstract classes instead of interfaces, if you don't have any good reason. And the other side that I'm seeing for this proposal is this is closer to meter, I mean to metrics, and have symmetry with metrics. Maybe it's better because users will not see differences. I mean if I'm using meter today, I can switch using tracing, same thing. I mean same ideas, same interfaces, stuff like that. So I'm seeing both sides. So I don't have a strong opinion here, but the only problem I'm seeing in the future, if we need to add anything to any of these interfaces, it would be a problem if we go with interfaces.
Right. But I mean, we also have the pattern of like, oh, iActivity source factory. Well, we want it to have one common implementation of create, so then we make an extension method on it. But if it was a class, this would just be a method that wasn't virtual. And we wouldn't have a second class to hold the extension method. So this would be one unified type that has a much better presentation and it can evolve. But if like
So back to your question, Jeremy. If someone is about to make their own implementation, well, I was working in a team that pretty much did own implementation of metrics builder. So there are such teams. It was first party team, but still, I think it's a valid usage. Another one, yeah, I understand the default interface methods problem, and I guess that's why the why the builder is basically empty. There is just the services and everything is in the extensions, because then when we are adding more methods, we are adding them as extensions. They are all extensions, and it actually looks better than have couple of them in the interface, the rest outside the interface. I think it's just another, it's like two different ways. If it's really about the different default methods, this is actually solved by this for metrics logging, and it can be for traces as well, I guess. And with the factory, yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, we want to be able to make it through DI. We want give libraries the collaborative role in this, and the same like with metrics. Yeah, the method was already there. The activity source was already there with their distinct ways of create them, that has actually ramifications, that it is then this global scope or global way. And that's why actually this similarity was followed.
Yeah, just to add to that, like one of the strongest reasons for approving this API in my mind is that it follows the Meter API. Using interfaces for things like the builder is like super standard. Like we have IMVC builder, iSignalR builder. Like most of the DI builders are interfaces. Not all. There's authentication builder.
And
But,
apparently
like,
options builder is also a class and not an interface.
yeah, I'm not saying that it's literally everything, but I do think it's more common than not. And like I think we need a better reason than like it's less extensible in some ways when these are simple interfaces to begin with, and you can always add more interfaces. Can even be implemented on the same object, and that might be better in some ways for like discoverability than just a dim or a default abstract method which just throws or whatever. And of course you could have like, you know, supports APIs, but anyway, point being, like I need a stronger argument, I think, to deviate from what Meter has, and I don't think people have complained about metrics, so I think it's fine.
Right. So, I mean, my normal hat is things under Microsoft extensions were interface heavy, and I can, you know, hold my nose. But these are going in system namespaces, and our basic rule is don't say interface unless you need it. So this is bleeding extensions paradigms into the BCL in places that we don't use them. Now, if all the Meter stuff ended up in a system namespace, particularly if it's the same system namespace, and it did this, then sure, that's prior art. But leaving the DI or leaving Microsoft extensions means different rules apply in my head. Only because I'm usually willing to be forgiving in extensions.
Yeah, again, adding this iActivity source factory right into diagnostics is driven the same reason it was with metrics, because there are other libraries that are actually in runtime as well that need to see it. I know at least about the HTTP logging and telemetry, and so that's why this interface goes so deep.
Actually, Jeremy, I mean, like when we introduced the metrics APIs, those interfaces was in the extensions in the first place. And because of the HTTP, I mean, we requested to move it down to the system diagnostics namespace in the runtime to be able to use it. So yeah, we are doing here, I mean, the same idea of.
Right. But instead of, you know, an interface and a extension type, like if you can have extensibility, that is the shape of extensibility. I guess you also need dispose because it's disposable. But like that's one fewer type, and it can now gain methods in the future. That's the wrong signature.
But my multiple inheritance is gone. But yeah, no, I mean,
Yes,
I just
amazing.
think consistency, honestly, that's not the argument, right? The argument is consistency. Like, I think, people who are familiar with the meter factory thing will more easily
But
find
I don't think
this thing.
do they care? Like,
Does
does anybody say I activity source factory, or do they grab it off of the builder pattern and they're just grabbing a thing that was an I activity source factory?
I think they actually do inject the factory, I'm pretty sure, but I don't use it all that much. I'm trying to remember.
But all that means is instead of add singleton I activity source factory, comma, actually a thing they can't see because I didn't see a public type implementing it, then they would just say add singleton activity source factory, comma, whatever. Like, you don't have to have an interface on the left.
Well, the registration is going to be add tracing anyway, so it's going to be hidden. It's more about people adding it as a constructor parameter. Like, they're going to be expecting an I, tracing factory, or I activity source factory, probably, if they have familiarity with the I meter factory.
Another thing is that this way you add a legit way to create this activity source. It's on the factory. Yeah, so the idea here, sorry, I thought that originally that you added the constructor on the activity source. So in the activity source factory, I think the idea is to have minimal interface, because you basically need the options only on the interface itself, and this activity sources are created through options, and that's why there is this extension method, because anyone who wants to implement this iActivity source factory will only have to implement this one create with activity source options, which is the important one, and not the other one that basically creates the options under the hood. So it's more convenience method. So in terms of like solid principles, I know everyone loves to hear this. I guess this makes sense with the extension method.
To your point about like, does it matter that much? Maybe not. Like, I'm saying because it doesn't matter much, just to stay consistent. But like, I don't think it's the end of the world if we change it to an abstract.
But that's the problem is, so if what we did for the metrics was we built a bunch of stuff in Microsoft Extensions and then said, oh, now we need to move it into System Diagnostics. Once we were saying move it, there was probably a huge amount of, oh, we want all the words to be the same, just in a different namespace. At which point we weren't allowed to really have a discussion on things. But for consistency, in a system namespace, don't add interfaces that don't end enable. So the consistency argument says don't use interfaces. In my opinion.
I mean, it's other than like we're copying like one-to-one this other thing, but with I see your point, like with the broader system namespace for sure. Another thing that might influence your thoughts here is iMeter factory is in system diagnostics metrics. Could we add like system diagnostics activity source or tracing or something, assuming it doesn't exist already? Maybe that hides it a little more.
I mean, but it's still a system, which means it should be actually consistent with framework design guidelines, as opposed to Microsoft Extensions, which seem to have been, it knew the book was there and it didn't care.
Yeah, so, I mean, I've said my piece about like consistency with the metrics API. I'm not gonna like die on that hill. I don't think.
Tanner, you've been quiet. Would you like to opine? I'm sure no's the correct answer, but would you opine anyway?
I think it's better to not go with the interfaces here.
Okay, and if users want to implement their activity source factory because they, for example, want to test telemetry, definitely.
Then,
I mean,
like
frameworks do.
This shape allows them to implement their own factory.
Right.
Yeah, it's still abstract, so it should be fine from that perspective.
We can make it abstract where we don't say what the public type that we've actually implemented is, or we can make it just virtual and the default does our default behavior. Either way are fine, and either way lets somebody do what they want. The only thing they can't do is accept a null options and create.
I actually just dislike the template method pattern too, like create core. I mean, we see we're getting to our underlying motivations as well, but yeah.
Fair enough. I mean, the template method pattern solves a lot of problems. It is one of the best patterns I think that the book recommends. And
I know you love it, but it forces you into create like methods like create core. You gotta name them.
I mean, sure. The naming on it is a little sure, but and I would like to point out that while yes, I am the author of the most recent copy of the book, I picked up TPM from the second edition, and it solved so many problems with types I was working on. So
Okay.
I
so
learned it from the book,
abstract-
not I wrote it in the book.
Sorry. So the abstract class, and actually, Stephen had very good point in this namespace that this factory can go to system diagnostics tracing if we want.
Is that an existing namespace?
I don't think so, because like
Okay.
we have activity class. This is the main tracing class. I mean, this is not under, it's under system diagnostics, I believe.
Mhm.
So I mean, like moving this one under dot tracing, I don't think it's a good idea. The other thing is like when we introduce the metrics APIs, we decided to put all metrics under its own namespace, which is .metrics. Yeah, but this is not the case for tracing.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I missed that part earlier, but I agree. I think you're probably right. Put it in the
yeah.
same place as activity source.
Yeah, second.
One thing I want to mention, I like the abstract class more than interfaces. As I mentioned, I agree with Jeremy. Just one thing I want to mention. I mean, like we had some community discussions like 2 years ago or something. And from there, I mean, from these discussions, people really like to have interacting with the DI through interfaces more than classes. I don't know why. I mean, like, you know, but like when they don't see interfaces while dealing with DI, I mean, like they got like nervous about it.
It honestly does throw people off. It shouldn't, like adding like non-interface constructor parameters from DI, just because so often they are interfaces. But I don't know if that's a good reason. People should.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying this is a good reason. I mean, I'm just saying like how people think about it. I mean,
Yeah,
like,
that's an interesting point. Yeah, honestly, I think it's just kind of a stylistic thing at a certain point. Like you're just so used to all the services being interfaces. It's just like,
yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I agree with the abstract class. It's better here.
Okay, so I assume tracing service extensions is still a type that's desired because it's in the DI namespace and it's extending service collection. But do we want an I tracing builder, or are we making non-I tracing builder?
for the builder, like, can we just make it an I?
I will.
Like this
I
is
will-
still in Microsoft extensions. It's pretty common.
Actually, the builder is. Oh, yeah, the builder is in Microsoft extensions. So I can hold my nose, but I think Chad is actually leaning toward get rid of the interface for the builder more than they were for the factory. So
Just
Okay.
wondering about like what is the benefit to keep it as interface here? I mean, like it's just like other builders in the extensions are interfaces.
It's a style thing, like before. Yeah, it's just like most things are. It kind of shows that there's like nothing special up the sleeve of the builder too. Like if it's a non-interface, people might like start like looking at like what is the behavior of the builder. You know what I mean? Like, is it doing anything interesting? In this one, it's not, right? Like most anytime we have an I whatever builder, it has this exact pattern. It's just has a single iService collection property called services. It's the way like IMVC builder is, it's the way iSingleR builder is, it's the way IMCP server builder is. Like you just know nothing's up its sleeve. It's not doing any crazy implementation stuff, and I don't know. And it's just what people expect.
And we extended through the extensions methods in general. I mean, like
Right,
in the
that's the only thing
implementation.
we do. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just all it does is it limits the extension methods that you can call. The alternative would be to return the iService collection, which some things do, but this shouldn't.
Well, I would keep it because usually, users will have add metrics with, builder configuration, and right then they will have tracing and logging. I guess it would be nice to keep the same style for all of them.
Right. So I mean, we could have. I mean, I think everyone agrees we want the builder. The question is like, does it need to be an interface? It certainly doesn't need to be, but I think it should be.
Oh yeah, I meant if it should return a tracing builder or iService collection. That's how I got it. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I did bring that up, and I probably shouldn't have. But yeah, I agree. It should be a builder.
To quote chat, options builder is not special in any way. No one thinks it is, even though it's a class.
I mean, options builder is something that everyone's used.
Right, and that's
But
why
yeah, I
why
mean-
chat is saying get rid of the iTracing builder and just make tracing builder.
But he's unique, Now he's special, and we will take it from him.
Because he joined the call.
I mean, options builder.
I mean, options builder isn't unique. That was one of the list of several builders that didn't use the interface pattern that came up earlier. The comment on that one from chat is that it is a very common thing. People work with it all the time, and Frederick at least is holding out that people don't complain about it.
There are a plethora of builders that all they are is an iService collection property called services, and 95% of them are just interfaces. So I mean, there are differences. Options is like actually the oldest one. We kind of moved away from that.
Fair enough. I mean,
it also, yeah, options does have a little bit more, like it, because there are named options. That being said, it's not doing that much interesting. Everything it has on it probably could be extension methods, but this is even simpler than that. Much more like iSingleR builder or IMCP server builder or any of those other ones.
I mean, again, my opinion is these shouldn't be interfaces because they don't match the able rule. But if you think that you will never need to extend it, and this does have a win in Rome, so I can let it go. Okay.
Well, I think if we want to step from the interfaces as builders, maybe we can start with the next builder that won't be 99% similar to another two builders that are already there. That's my whole point. But if we deliver this with classes, so be it.
Right,
I would say
it's
would
not
say
the
we
biggest
need-
deal, but this isn't the one to do it on. I completely agree.
I would say we need to have like a design concepts here. I mean, for the extensions libraries in general, about like should we use interfaces by default? Should we use abstract class by default? Of course, I mean, like every case can be discussed about like if we need to change this rule. I mean, but in general, about like we should have like some design rule about like even for extensions library. I mean, you should use like abstract class by default, except if you have a good reason to use interfaces.
I mean,
this is my
Jeremy would
take.
argue we already have the rule, and the rule is not to use interfaces.
No, but
I
I don't think it's applied for the extensions library that
Right.
that's strict.
Because extensions was made without the purview of the design group, and then it came under the control of the design group, but we had to take what was already there. And so it has a lot of this violates
Right.
our normal rules, but it's locally consistent, so we have to go with it. But this is adding a new thing in a mixed bag, so we have room for
Yeah.
discussion.
I think Jeremy, we in general agree with you, but that clear class versus interface thing. But the difference is that we are unsure that this is the place where we should apply it. Maybe we should keep this as wrong as the others. That's, I think, the argument.
Yeah, that's the win in Rome. All right. So we are unsealing a type. Are we cool with universal unsealing, or do we need to try and limit this to it can only be extended by us?
we could do the closed hierarchy and then unseal one of the. No. All right, maybe not. Does that work?
I think
Use
this
the new
is going
C#
to be
feature?
one level. So
Because it's net standard, yeah. Fair
This can't be extended down the level. Actually, yeah. Can you even do this? Like if activity source is in net, if it's in net standard as sealed, and somebody's building net standard, they would see the net standard copy and not this. I guess we can do it because it only affects the
Net
runtime.
standard.
You're not exposing the derived type, so they never have to interact with it. So
Right.
it's probably fine. Okay.
I think it depends on if it's ever shipped in box as net standard 2.0. If it's shipped as
Unsealing's not breaking. Right?
Unsealing is not breaking, but I was thinking more if this had type unification problems with like framework. So if you were pulling in this package and it wanted to extend activity source, but activity source was pushed to, or was hitting framework, and framework said it was sealed, then the package would have compiled, but then would throw that you derived from a sealed type.
Right, which was
We-
if it shipped in box as net standard 2.0, then the net standard 2.0 surface area is effectively frozen permanently because of unification issues. If it's never shipped in box as net standard 2.0, then we can just ship a new package and everyone gets the package, and that unifies that way.
Yeah, is this part of a package, or is this just inbox?
I'm not sure if the net standard one is inbox or not, but the actual library is inbox.
Interesting.
one
Activity
thing-
source is package provided for net framework, but inbox for core. So there is a package, but it's also inbox.
So can you explain again, Tanner? What is the risk? Even if it is net standard?
So if it's shipped in box,
Right.
then it will attempt to unify with the inbox version, which will still be sealed.
This is
Which
in
means-
case if the application is not referencing explicit version of what you need, right?
Even if they reference it, some other dependency might have pulled in the actual inbox one. There's a general problem where if you have an inbox version of the type, then the NuGet package is basically just a facade that's supposed to refer to that. And so even if you unseal the reference assembly, it will attempt to unify with something that is in box and part of the dependent framework that's copied into other apps, in which case you may end up getting the runtime seeing this type is sealed and it not unifying with the type that says that it's unsealed.
And it will
So-
fail. And it will fail in runtime.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if
Until-
you referenced it in the correct graph and it's allowed to pull forward, then it should pull the package version down and unseal it. So that should be okay. But there are times that it gets weird, and I don't remember when they are. How do we build packages these days? Looking at the wrong thing anyway. I'm just trying to understand if we actually have implementations in this library or if it just says, trust me, bro, I'm in box.
Yeah, and it probably good to run it by, well, I guess we've got a few people on the team, but normally I'd run it by Eric St. John.
Nothing looks like it's doing facade building. So this says it's in the package diagnostic source, but it's also in the assembly diagnostic source. So I think this is the case that works because it just replaces the whole assembly with the higher version.
We can sync later and talk about how it can be reproduced, and I can try it.
Yeah,
Before we should
really,
take-
it would be build it and then try it with a .NET 8 runtime and see if the universe explodes. But anyway, so the question is the derived type going to be living in the same assembly, at which point do we want to do something to make it effectively sealed, or is it going to be sealed across assemblies, at which point we're making it open, or are we just fine with making it open? But this is unsealing, so some conscious decisions either need to be made now or can't ever be made. Hence the question.
How easy we can avoid unsealing it? I mean, like, if we can avoid unsealing it, I mean, we should go this way. I mean, like,
I can take a look. We would need to have some mechanism inside the system diagnostics that would be somehow activated.
Right, but
That would be a hack.
if
know.
it's only the activity source factory, I guess the question is
Suggesting like a return API or something instead
Yeah.
of dispose, because like that's the whole point, right? Is they want to hook dispose, so you need to have something that you call instead of dispose.
well, but they want to block dispose is the thing.
Right? Yeah. No. Yeah. Sorry, I forgot. Yeah. No, that's exactly it. You need to change the behavior of dispose.
Because if the answer is that everything created by an activity source factory, whether it's first party or third party, should make an activity source that doesn't dispose, then inside the activity source factory class, you can grab the return value of create core, and then you can call an internal method on it, telling it to have this behavior of don't dispose, and then return the thing that won't dispose. Like, you can do that without unsealing it. There are options.
But like that would only work for internal implementations of the activity source factory.
No,
and-
because the factory can do it in a wrapper that calls the virtual method.
Well,
It then wouldn't let someone not have their dispose blocked, which would be the concern.
Well, one thing is that only the interface is in system diagnostics. The factory itself is in extensions. So
Right.
Well,
But even if it weren't for that, like everyone else would have that problem.
I mean,
Oh.
right now the factory's not declared.
yeah,
I mean,
because
this comes back
it needs
to.
to.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Interfaces.
Well, because the factory is now a class, and this comes back to, is it abstract and you need to define the factory somewhere else, or is it virtual and this just has the default behavior built in here? I also don't know who makes the factory. I don't remember seeing it pop up anywhere.
Well, it needs to see things from a higher level. So that's why only the interface is there, and the actual implementation is in extensions where it can see all the options and things around it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't think we want everyone calling like base create core. Like, don't we want to be a little more flexible than that and let you just want to new up your own activity source?
Is the factory even referenced in the proposal?
Well, there might be some way that there is this factory in the scope, so the class can somehow check the factory's state somehow and dispose or not, but it will be a filthy hack that I think could bring more pain than gain in the end, you know.
Fair enough. So where's this factory supposed to matter?
It's the default
You're
implementation.
supposed to inject it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just like iMeter factory, right? Like if you instead of newing up a meter, if you want to do it in a scalable way that doesn't leak across test cases or whatever,
Right, but
you
so is it
inject
like
an iMeter factory?
Is this add tracing registering a factory in DI somewhere?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, by default.
Okay. Just because like nothing that this is the only place that activity source factory existed. I mean, and
Yeah,
it's
this is
interesting.
very common for things using DI. Is the implementation type is just not part of the public API. I mean, it's just added via the iService collection methods.
So if somebody wants to customize it, they have to add one before calling add tracing or after something.
Yeah.
Or
Magic.
before in this case, because it calls triad. But
Actually, correct. Yes, good call.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. Yeah, in most cases, it doesn't matter. That's why triad exists.
Okay. But so sure. So so if the factory, well, again, I guess it comes back to, do you want the activity source factory base class to do this with all activity sources, or do you want the individual factories to be able to make the decision? And if you want the factories to make the decision, then we need to either unseal the type or just add a method on it of like, don't actually dispose me when I dispose.
Do we know if the type unification thing is happening for real here with activity source and older net frameworks?
I don't think we do know for sure or not.
Yeah.
Someone would have to go and dig in and look and confirm.
yeah, I would check
Because
it out.
assuming it's not a problem, my temptation would be just to go with the proposal because we know it works for meter.
Yeah. So the thing that doesn't so my understanding of the universe is unification binds to the higher version in core, but it binds to the GAC in framework. Which usually means we get the worst of all worlds. But in this case, these types are only available via NuGet on framework, which means that sanity should prevail and this should work. This should be possible.
Cool.
I could be wrong.
I think we should just.
But I
stick
think
with
it
the
should work.
proposal then.
Okay, so you want to derive activity source from the DI assembly, not from system diagnostics diagnostic source. Correct?
Sorry, me?
Where is the derived type of activity source going to be defined?
Oh yeah, it is. It is actually a private type in the source activity factory implementation. Its only purpose is to make the dispose no op and instead have another method that is called when we really need to dispose.
So it'll be in the Microsoft extensions,
Yeah.
whatever DLL.
So you want to extend it across an assembly boundary, so we have to make it open.
Yeah.
So. And are you okay with that, Tarek?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
Just we need to double check with Eric St. John. I mean, like, no problem with unsealing it.
Yeah, I mean,
I think
I think really it's just try it and then run it with .NET 8. If it works,
Yep.
it works. So.
Yeah, I think we tested such scenarios with other things that we exposed before. Yeah, I know that it was sealed. I mean, but at least we were able to get the new APIs that we added. I mean, in the upper version when we are targeting lower version.
Yeah, it sounds like
that-
since neither meter nor activity source is like in the GAC on full framework, we're fine.
No.
here. Yeah.
If it is in GAG, I mean, so most of the applications want to use our new APIs will be broken.
Right. But
But
This
it's the same
says-
we did with meter, right? It was sealed as well, and it was then unsealed because of the same thing. Yeah.
yeah, I just thought this
Right.
was
I think
older.
just meters newer. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So we were just wondering, like, is there legacy for activity source that goes back further that makes it
Yeah.
different? But
I
don't think
thought
so.
activity source was in framework, but it says it. It's the light pink
Okay.
package provided API color. So
Yeah, it's new. Yeah.
and yes, the GAC makes us gag.
And for meter, I do remember, I mean, like when we introduced meter, it was unsealed in the first place, or
Really?
did we unseal at some stage? I don't know.
I don't know.
Because meter is kind of similar to activity source now. It's not sealed,
Yes.
but there are no virtual methods except of
I
the
think we
dispose,
unsealed
so-
it. I think you're remembering that correctly, or we have a shared hallucination. But that sounds right to me.
All right, and activity source options already exists. And activity listener already exists.
Yes.
Okay. I feel like the DI people said, please leave the builder as an interface. So unless anyone wants to relitigate that, we'll move on. I'll ask the same question for the listener. Do you really want it to be an interface instead of a class?
Yeah, I really mean this one because users are actually expected to implement this by their class and then add both this interface and the implementing type into DI. So this is a different situation to that builder.
I think we need to do the template method pattern for all of these. So that's going to be 12 members. Just kidding.
I mean, you only need a template method pattern if, you take arguments. The gets,
That makes
unless
sense.
the gets were supposed to throw a consistent I've been disposed exception. But
Yeah. No, I'm teasing.
yeah. So again, really it just comes down to this will be its shape forever. You don't get to add to it. So if it's if it's a class, you can add to it. If it's an interface, you can't. But if you think interface is right, then
And is it still the case with the default interface methods that it's a no to
For
add?
net standard targeting
Yeah, for net-
packages, which I think this is.
this package is available to .NET Framework, which means you can't use DIMS at all.
Oh yeah, no doubt in this case, but I'm asking more in general for things that we can just strip to .NET Core.
Have
if
we approved a DIM in runtime? We've definitely done it in ASP.NET Core. and it's
Generic
been
math.
Okay.
fine.
Generic math
As
has a
far as
lot
I
of
know.
DIMS, but I don't know that
Yeah.
we've done DIMS that weren't static.
Okay.
We've
I mean, we
I
may have
think
done.
generic
They
math
would have been in generic math,
has-
but I don't know we've done them outside generic math.
Generic math was also, when it was shipped, explicitly stated that we are versioning this moving forward via DIMS. If you break, it's on you.
But in general, we don't do interfaces in the BCL, so we don't need DIMS, so it hasn't come up. Aside from generic math. Okay.
One question here about the property called name. What name is referring to the activity source name, or what or the activity name, or
It's the listener name. So we then can say in configuration that I want listener XY to listen to source XX, for example.
and this name will match what? I mean the activity name?
The
Or-
listener name. In the options, there is activity source name, activity name, and listener name. So this is the
See
third.
tracing rule too, like at the bottom of the screen. It's there
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out about like how's this name, the listener name. I mean, will matter much?
You think that listener name would be better than just name?
No. I'm not saying change the name. I'm just trying to understand about like how this name is matter in general with the configuration.
Well, for example, OpenTelemetry has its OpenTelemetry listener, and they will say they want to enable it for all activity sources. So we know that when there are like 5 listeners registered, that this one should be enabled.
Okay.
This
Okay.
is
So
this
this
is
is actually a deviation from from the meter listener,
No.
which is a sealed class with get settable properties. That's interesting.
yeah. You know the meter listener was a new type, right? This one is a way how to make the activity listener through DI. So it's a bit different thing.
I see.
And with the name, I think actually the name works pretty much the same as with metrics listener, actually.
We'll say it is weird to me that there will be a iActivity listener in DI, and there's an activity listener in not DI, and the activity listener does not implement iActivity listener. Because it
I
can't.
agree with that. Why can't we register the activity listener? Because it's not named.
Yeah. It doesn't have a name.
I mean, you can add a name.
Maybe-
You can unseal it and add a
Can
name.
we? Yeah.
Or
can
you could
we add
not
a name?
unseal it and add a name.
We could not unseal it and add a name, right? Like it's get set in theory.
What-
I mean, it would have to be optional.
If we want
What's that? If we rename the iActivity listener to something like iTrace listener, would this solve the issue?
eye tracing listener.
There's already a
Yes.
trace listener as well.
Really?
I do actually worry about the extensibility of this. Also looking at it, like more than the other things, like with the builder, I don't care because it's just like the iService collection. That's all it's ever going to be. With this, like, do we know? Like, there are a lot of. Didn't mean to be myself, but there are a lot of other things that are on like the real activity listener.
So you think that adding an optional property on activity listener with name and a constructor, like 2 constructors, actually there is a default constructor now. So 2 constructors, 1 empty and 1 with name, that it would be better, right?
Maybe. So it's only adding 1 if the default's already there, right? But yeah, probably. I mean, you don't even need the second constructor if the name's optional. Like, it's just a
We-
get set property.
Yeah, we need to set
Like
a name and
everything
we have
else.
it sorry, we need to set a name and have it immutable for this usage. So I guess the constructor would be the right way. What do you think?
Yeah, if you don't want to, or yeah, and we don't want to use the knit, which we probably don't, because once again, that's standard.
Also, make it a set name method that just throws if it's been called more than once. But if you want it to be consistent for the whole life, then yeah, that would be a constructor overload.
Right, because otherwise it could change from null to non-null at an arbitrary point, and that's kind of weird too.
And you can
I do
name
think if
all-
you really want to enforce the immutability of the constructor, is probably the way to do it.
And what's worse, you can even name these activity listeners that weren't created by us, and then it can, start being funny.
Fair enough. Yeah, it probably does avoid certain class of issue to not let you change it.
All right, so we want to add those on activity listener.
I'd be okay with that. I honestly do think that's probably better than the interface for this.
Okay. Yeah, I agree.
May as well make the string parameter optional so that if we add another constructor later, we don't have nonsense with that.
Sure, still immutable. Yeah.
Do we have more constructors already exist for activity listeners?
Just the
Just the
default.
default.
Yeah.
The default? Okay.
Yeah.
So it will need to be explicit so it doesn't erase itself, but presumably tests will already cover that, and it looks like it's explicit anyway. So.
Yeah, but this will require like OpenTelemetry guys to start using this new constructor to be able to work with our configuration.
Well, we will be.
Yeah, but they would have
this
needed the new assemblies anyway.
Interface.
So.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
And I think the OpenTelemetry will start using the configuration as a whole, because now they have to use regexes there and things like that. I think they will be very happy with making the changes and get all the performance from it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, so iActivity listener goes away. All right, is activity source scope none the best name for 0? Or is it actually none? Is it unknown? Is it unspecified?
I can repeat the argument that it's similar.
What did
to
we
metrics.
use for meter?
Yeah, we have the same enum, only called metric scope for metrics.
Right.
And I think it will be a perfect foot gun to have different members in them then, because users will change it in configurations and they will have them side by side more or less, and I think it could be messy.
Okay, I'm not seeing the metrics one. What's it called?
Meter scope.
Meter scope, yeah.
Which was none global local. Okay.
I think the one inconsistency I caught in tracing rule versus meter rule is that it should probably be enable instead of enabled.
Oh yeah, that's my fault. I removed the D's from everywhere except here. So sorry guys, the D shouldn't be there. So it should be enable.
And what's the basis
Everything
class for
else
this
is
one?
the same. Instrument rule, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, changed.
Why is tracing options an iList?
Before we move from the rules, we have the activity name property.
Mhm.
And actually activity have either operation name or display name. It doesn't have like pure name. So do we need to clarify from the naming here what we mean by name, or it doesn't matter?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I'm open to specify it better by the name. And this is actually using the same one as OpenTelemetry, and even I forgot which one it is. So maybe specified better would make sense.
I would say we go with display name. I mean, this is will be better for the configuration. Yeah, but also the implementation, I think, for display name inside activities to fall back to operation name if it is null.
Why
Yeah,
are we not
sure.
using like activity operation name or something super direct, or am I missing something?
Yeah, I think OpenTelemetry differentiating between operation name and display name. I mean, for their stuff, and they use display name explicitly. I mean, like most of the time, not the operation name.
Even though for our API it's activity dot operation name.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
They use
Do we call it
operation
display name anywhere else? Yeah.
Yeah, they actually use operation name. I mean, the OpenTelemetry, I see it now here, if I haven't missed anything.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, we can maybe even,
I recall they are using display name in other places. I mean, so
Okay. Yeah, that's
yeah,
perfectly
but
possible.
I mean, looking at the API comments you have on it, it sounds like operation name should be matched, and display name is only intended to be what you draw on the screen. So operation
right.
name is
intuitively that makes sense. And
code,
also,
and
if we
display
haven't
is
used
text.
display name, right? And if we haven't called it display name in our other APIs, then we have called it operation name. Like, I would need a reason to change it. Like, if it's called both things.
Yeah. So activity operation name feels good to everyone?
Yeah.
Perfect. Oh yeah, OpenTelemetry uses operation name in the processor. So
All right, so activity name becomes activity operation name, or no?
makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think we're good on that.
Okay. Anything else?
There was a question on the iList. Again, it's just to follow the same that is in metrics options. At least I hope is there. Well, I think it is.
Yeah, I mean, the question comes down to, are you returning a private type, or are you just using generic list?
List.
Because it's get only, so the implementation you're using is the implementation it will always be, and our usual answer is, if you're returning a concrete collection type, someone's going to cast it, so it's a breaking change for you to change it in the future, so you should just be honest with the return type. If there's a
Okay.
reason we want the interface here, then we can, but
Well, it's actually initialized with a new list, and then only you add more and more rules. So this
Right.
is very straightforward. So I will change it to list then. Okay.
Okay.
one more question regarding tracing rule again. So if we look at it, we have like activity source name, we have activity name, and we have activity source scope, but we have listener name. So should we rename this to activity listener name to be consistent with the rest, or it doesn't matter?
Or we could get rid of activity from all of them. But yeah, I was kind of thinking that too. I
Mhm.
think activity listener's name's fine. I think it's slightly better.
I would actually agree with stripping the activity then. That would be
From
like
everything.
source name, operation name, listener name.
I'm fine with that too.
What do you think, Jeremy?
So source name, operation name, and listener name
Yep.
Yep.
seems reasonable to me.
Perfect.
And source scope? Oh, scopes, just scopes.
I will say I was away from my unmute button for a second on the iList thing. iList is pretty conventional for option things that are bound to, and oftentimes it is just a list, but there is a kind of possibility that in the future, even if you don't need to now, that you can put some validation object and add, basically.
But you can't.
change it with a custom list. Yeah.
Sorry. I mean,
you'd
again,
say
this
so.
is Microsoft
Like,
extensions.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
You can say you're more
to a list, and
Right.
now you broke their code. Yeah.
Right.
No,
So-
I hear you.
at
I
least
don't like the
.NET
double display.
.NET Framework. We would have said someone could have been casting this because the cast would have always succeeded in the past. That it is a breaking change to break that cast. That
Yeah,
and
we
.NET
assume
Framework
that
says no
people
breaking
don't do
changes.
such an asinine thing with the options iList. But yeah, no, it's true.
Because there are members on lists that aren't on iList, and sometimes people want them and they get mad, and then they just hard cast.
That's true. That would be the one reason to use it for like the concat kind of thing. Sure.
And
All
if you wanted to make add reject null, then you can do that by being a private type in V1 and being iList.
And honestly, it's rare to do something like that. Because you have to, like, it's more than just add, of course. I think. But anyway, I'd have to double check. It's like the indexer and stuff. But yeah, yeah, I'm fine with changing to list. I just figured I'd point that out, that there is that possibility of changing to a custom type later, even if that would technically be breaking.
The syntax would allow that change, and the breaking change tolerance may or may not allow it. Like, again, if you really want to say keep the iList here, because it's consistent, then we can do so. But if it was in a system namespace, I would say getting rid of the I is better.
I'm fine with it. We can get rid of it.
Okay. All right, tracing builder extensions. The type is clearly needed if the builder is an interface. So
Sorry, Jeremy, can you show me the shape of the tracing rule now? I mean, like, just to make sure I... tracing rule, yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
oh, should we name the parameter up here?
Okay, and the properties, we calling the property scopes, I mean, with plural, is it intentionally or?
It is flags.
Okay, because okay, and the enum flags itself activity source scope. We don't use plural on the name of the enums, right?
Right, not on flag enums. I'm pretty sure that's right. Yeah, you don't pluralize flag enums.
Yeah, the enum
Interest-
is singular, but you can combine them. So when you then have a property, it makes sense to have plural, right?
I think this is right. Yeah, because even with flag enums, each case when you write it out is a single case. So I think
Do use a plural type name for an enumeration with bit fields as values, also called a flags enum.
oh, it's the exact opposite. I knew there was a rule for that. All right, so maybe we should change it, even if it's inconsistent with meter. Oh no, did we miss that on the meter scope?
We did.
So,
I wonder if meter scope started off as not flags and then it became flags later.
Could be.
I guess it had to start as flags because the mechanism is such that it wouldn't work without it.
I mean, that assuming that the scope and the rule were defined at the same time, yeah. So, all right, so we should slap an S on scopes.
Good call, Tarek. I knew there was a rule about it. I thought it was the opposite.
Okay.
Okay.
And then it's in the tracing rule constructor, but if you're looking for the other usage.
Thank you. Okay. Anything? We renamed the rule to just say source name, but
Oh yeah.
in the
Yeah,
builder
yeah.
extensions here, it's probably detached enough that it probably makes sense to keep the word activity or get rid of it, whichever you want.
It's enabled tracing, so I think it makes sense that it matched the rule names.
Okay.
Or what do you think, guys? I'm open to anything here because both make sense somehow.
If it is just the same flat list of members as the rule, then probably just matching the constructor parameters is the best.
Okay.
Does meter options have the same extension method kind of thing for enable disable?
Oh yeah, as far as I remember, they do.
And it's on the same extension, like as the builder, like the extension methods are next to each other on the same class.
Yeah. Yeah, it's enable metric and disable metric. Enable metrics and disable metrics. Yeah, and they are all extensions.
Those are
and
on the builder though, not on the options.
Yeah, the builder is just one property interface with services.
Oh, I see both. Okay, I missed it. All right.
That's gonna be annoying.
See.
All right. I think I fixed all of my notes there now. All right. Did I miss anything while I was updating notes?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Just you pointing out that, or it's consistent with meter.
All right. Have we hit a state of local happiness?
Yeah, looks good to me.
Global happiness, I hope. I don't see any flex point.
All right. We merged Activity Source Factory and Activity Source Factory extensions into an abstract Activity Source Factory. We eliminated Activity Listener and added a name as an optional thing on the existing Activity Listener. We renamed some stuff in tracing rules. we changed ilist to list, and we smacked an S on the end of activity source scope. I believe that is the summary of changes.
Sounds good.
Yeah, one thing I'm actually thinking about the activity listener. Sorry to keep you a bit more here. So if the constructor with the name will be just there and without the name as well, users will be able to add a constructor without a name into the DI, and then the configuration simply won't apply to it. If we are fine to just write it into remarks or documentation, or if it's potential food gun, yeah, it can surprise them. I edit an activity listener, why it's not there. But yeah, it's true that they didn't configure it to be there because it has no name. Well,
I think it's fine to just document. Like if you
Okay.
want to register it and have it be found by our system, you have to provide a name. Like if you want to register an activity source without a name, go for it. Like our stuff won't resolve it. You know what I mean? You can still resolve it directly. So I don't know. It seems okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if anywhere, I would say that documentation probably belongs on the rule. So that, like on the listener name property, say, a non-null value means it will only match an activity listener created using the or created with an optional name.
Mhm.
Yeah, that will be there because there will be the information that the name is a full match. So there will be something like that anyway.
Mhm. And then,
Okay.
I guess if we got rid of the D here, we should get rid of the D here.
I think
Oh
so.
yes, I will do that. And by the way, we
you can't do it, I have to.
yeah, it's just scopes. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, thank you.
Oop. You were saying, Stefan?
I forget. I think we're good.
Okay. Boom.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Roddick, you still with us, and you want to talk about this in half an hour?
Yes.
All right. Then DNS client and custom DNS queries. Runtime 19443.
Okay, so in .NET we have a few DNS APIs, mostly equivalent to GitHost other or say similar thing on Windows, and we have some problems with them, namely that they don't give us the time to live information, which would be beneficial for us to use internally in HTTP client, for example, to do some informed decisions about how long we want to keep around the connections in the thread pool. Also, we have some ongoing problems with GitHost address on Linux because the native API, the glibc function is not cancelable, is synchronous. So in order to implement stuff like GitHost address async, we have to jump through a few hoops, and it still is somewhat not vulnerable, but prone to exhausting basically doing thread pool starvation and basically using many threads and basically not behaving very well, which causes timeouts in HTTP client under heavy load, etc., etc. So we would like to address this by basically introducing some better functionality to do DNS queries. And since this would require us to implement the DNS protocol ourselves so that we can do it fully asynchronously, and whatnot, we decided that it would be nice to actually give the make the API a little bit more public so that we can actually have access to the most common DNS records, and that's what this proposal is about. So we have decided to go the route of adding static methods on the existing DNS class. The existing methods are usually something like get host address or get host entry or async variants. And essentially, because the newer methods are going to do pretty much the same thing, just return more structured information that will also contain the time to live information and possibly some better structured error code or error response if such thing happened from the DNS server. We have to choose a different name because you can't overload simply on the return value. So there we are. We have choose the prefix resolve, whatever async, and we have taken a list. We have taken a look at the list of existing DNS resource records and picked out what we think are the most common ones that folks might be interested in. There are like 40 of these types, and we picked, I don't know, I think 8 or something like that, 8 to 10 of the most commonly used ones. And that's the easy, basically a direct replacement for get host addresses async. The topmost to get resolve addresses async and resolve addresses async, which takes also the address family. We also wanted to give it a little bit more flexibility to allow selection of the DNS server, where we are going to send those queries. So we have looked into also having instance-based APIs, which is the DNS resolver. The only way that differs is that this one is instance-based. It accepts some options, but otherwise the resolve methods are the same. And in the future, like not in the first implementation, but in the future, we might also be able to enhance this to use DNS over TLS, DNS over HTTP, over Quake, or some other transports. And having an instance where we can bind this to would make it easier for us. For example, because for example, for DNS over Quake, we have a long-lived connection, so we can tie the lifetime of the connection to the resolver and not to some internal static state in the static methods. If you can scroll a little bit down, there is some description of how the DNS result looks like. So we have the DNS response code that's directly from the header. The values are defined by the RFC, the meaning as well. Then there are the records. Those are also more or less direct translations of what it looks on the wire, just to make it strongly typed and easy to consume. And the only thing that's a little bit weird is the negative cache time to live information on the DNS result. So in the first version, we don't plan to implement caching inside the resolver or internally, but the time to live information is usually used to do some form of caching. And there is important case when there are no results, and the DNS query, for example, returns no IP addresses, then it is necessary to know how long this state is valid. So the way there is some algorithm to compute it. There are some additional records that are usually returned by the server, which we filter out and don't present in the DNS result of T. But we can calculate the negative cache time to live from there. So if the response code is like name error, non-existing domain, and we can say that for the next X seconds, the answer will not change.
Why
that
calculate a time to live if you're given like an absolute expires at timestamp? Like you said, you had to calculate the time to live. Like, why not just expose whatever the DNS server was giving you correctly?
By calculate, I mean take the minimum of two numbers. The command mentions it.
So is expires at a TTL and not a point in time?
Okay, so at the protocol level, DNS sends time to live information, like from now how long, how many seconds the record will be valid. So and in the API we have the option to say, okay, instead of exposing the TTL, we can give you, I don't know, time span or daytime offset when it will stop being valid. We discussed this within the team, and then we decided to expose what is actually on the wire. That's the integer time to live that specifies the seconds. The reason why we did that is that it's not necessarily clear what is the origin starting point to which we add the seconds, whether it's like the time when we send it or the time when we receive it.
So to be clear, so in the comment, I see negative cache expires at. Is that saying that's like an alternative API? That's not anything to do with what's on the wire, is it?
No, that's like the alternative if we decide that exposing integers is not good enough and we want to do something more strongly typed or easier to use, quote unquote.
No, I think it's better to be low level. I think you have it right.
Yeah, like one argument for having expires at is that folks can just take the struct and add it to some cache and then check whether the time to live is in the past or not. With integer time to live, they have to store the expiration time, the expires at alongside it somewhere. So it's a little bit less convenient to just like store it somewhere and then check it whether it's still valid. But in the
That's
end,
fine.
We decided that it's fine.
Yeah, it's totally fine. Because like the flip side is then you wonder if there's like, if anything's off about the system clock or your thread pool starved or whatever. Like, I mean, obviously that might affect your manual calculations too, but at least you're on the hook for that.
Right. Then we have just description of the individual records types. So if you scroll a little bit down, there is nothing too interesting. It's basically we take the description from the RFC and take the closest type we have in C#. So for domain names, we have strings. For numbers, we have appropriate integers.
Is the record versus result, is that a difference in the RFC? Does it distinguish between like a address record versus a text result? Like, is that, or are they all records?
The RFC has only like the term resource record, which is like the general name for address record, meaning like a record or a record or CNAME record, etc. It does not really have the like definition for result. And I see I probably made a typo. Those should be DNS CNAME record and DNS PTR record.
Should all the results just be records?
I think that's what he was implying.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I was wondering. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah. No worries.
Yep. And then I have just like some samples which are not necessarily too interesting, but if you scroll down, you can see them. There is probably something that might be worth discussing for the PTR lookup. The reverse DNS lookup has some like specific format in how on which domain name is being resolved. So we can make it easier by just accepting IP address and do the formatting ourselves, because this format should be fixed.
That seems
Otherwise,
like a good overload.
yeah.
So
We have some.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we have some alternatives. We could have generic resolve async of T. If you scroll a little bit down and maybe open the code block there. We found a way how to make the amount of overloads just like two, one generic and one specially for filtering only A or quadruple A records. But when we discussed this within the team, we were thinking that this might be less discoverable. So we decided not to go ahead with this one. And the other one is what we considered was, instead of having instance-based DNS resolver, we could have the static methods accept some DNS resolution options object where those, I don't know, for example, server addresses could be specified. There is some downside that if we later decide to go with implementing DNS over HTTP, Quick, or whatever, then we probably would have to tie the lifetime of the connection somehow to the DNS resolution options. And since those are not disposable, it might be a little bit weird contract. So again, the instance-based DNS resolver sounded like a better fit. And that's probably where the proposal ends. We had some ideas for allowing querying arbitrary resource records types by having some little bit more lower level API, which would give you DNS response reader and allow you to easily parse the response message. But it turned out to be quite a large API surface, and we didn't really have a good justification for that yet. So we will have to implement it internally, but at this point we decided that it might be better to start with a smaller API surface and maybe expand it later. I think it's included below, again, probably hidden in some section because it's multiple classes and lots of enums to basically represent the wire format of the DNS messages. But I think we don't need to look into that unless somebody is opinionated that we should have that. Okay, any questions?
So the
Kind of.
existing methods on DNS have both sync and async options. The new ones you're adding are only async. So is it not possible to make synchronous or the synchronous APIs that will get back to TTL? So this is the general, every time you think something should be async, some caller needs it to be sync, so there should be sync API design problem. So should we have sync overloads of this is, I guess, the question.
Yeah, so right now we have problems because the underlying OS APIs on Linux are synchronous only, and we are hitting problems there, both in synchronous and async cases. And so one of the problems we are trying to solve is to make it like cancelable and play well with thread pool and whatnot. So we will actually be doing like network communication below. We can expose synchronous APIs, but that probably would defeat the purpose.
I mean, you've got two purposes.
You can
One
always
is
add them later.
cancelable,
Yeah,
and the other one is
right.
the TTL. And
Yeah, right. Like synchronous APIs should be possible. We will be using then synchronous socket API to send and receive. So those will be blocking, obviously. But I don't think there is anything fundamental that would prevent them from existing.
okay, so
One thing that wasn't entirely clear to me about the implementation is like on Linux, is it using systemd resolve d whatever, or are you trying to do something else?
Right. So we will be implementing the minimal stub resolver, so some minimal portion of the DNS protocol. And if we run on systemd, then we can just point this resolver to the, what is it, 10.0.0.57 IP address, where the resolved resolver is running and is doing all the caching and looking into host file and whatnot. So if it's available, we will be using that. If not, then we will just be directly querying whatever DNS server is being configured on the machine.
All right, thanks.
So everything here is using the DNS record type name. So NS instead of name
Yes.
server, PTR instead of pointer, CNAME instead of canonical name, common
Canonical
name.
name.
Except right here in resolve, it says resolve service instead of resolve SRV. Presumably that should say resolve SRV.
Yes, that would be equivalent. Well, the only one that is going different is resolve addresses, because like the A
Resolve
and
A async.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the I would probably want to keep addresses there for another reason, and that when we are resolving IP addresses, the A and quadruple A records have to be queried separately. There is no way to tell in the DNS query message, I want those two types of records. So we are for the first one, we will be actually sending those two queries probably in parallel if we don't discover any significant problems there. So calling it resolve addresses probably sounds better,
Yeah.
more representative of what we are doing.
Is there a good way to make it the RRs, which is the A, the quad A's, and the C names all together, or it looks like people just have to do the two queries themselves and union them?
We will do that for in the top overload. There is another overload where you can specify that you want only IPv4 or IPv6.
Right,
So,
but these, if the host name you give actually resolves to a C name, you're not going to expand the C name and. Well, maybe you are.
yes, it actually well,
But
yes, it will.
But then you would
So,
get a fake record, because if the host name you enter is a C name and not an A or a quad A, then you would not be able to see that it was a C name from resolve addresses.
So if the resolve host name is an alias, so C name, most or basically all DNS servers support so-called recursive queries. So they will actually give you, hey, there is a CNAME record saying that this is an alias for that name, and by the way, there are its IP addresses. So the DNS server which we will be querying will be actually following those links or aliases and giving us also all the A and quadruple A records as well. So
Do the records give back what you queried?
no,
Because again,
But if you wanted to see both the CNAME and the addresses via the API, you'd still have to make 2 calls, right? Because the addresses, like, it might be recursive, but it just gives you the addresses, right? It wouldn't give you the CNAME.
because if the address record gave what the host name was, then you would be able to figure out that it was a CNAME, because when you called resolve addresses, the basically the query value would be different than the one you asked for, and you'd be like, oh, this was a CNAME. But the way that it is right now, you're just like, this is the IP address I talked to, which honestly is probably all that you care about. But
yeah, like so those APIs are supposed to be convenient, and in order to like do something smart and or smart things where you have to actually look at the entire response and all the resource records that were sent in the response, that's probably something where the lower level APIs will be better fit, where we would give users some reader object which they would be able to use to parse all the records themselves and examine what actually was sent back in the response and interpret it however they want. Like, I can't really remember from top of my head or think about any scenario where if I want to resolve hostname to IP addresses, where the knowledge whether that was an alias or not would be interesting to me.
yeah, I can't super think of it. I know the way that it looks when you run dig, so that it tells you, by the way, this was a CNAME. I went ahead and resolved it for you.
Yeah.
And so it just seems like if we have the data already, particularly if you're not planning on doing DNS caching initially, it's a little sad that if somebody wants to know it, they end up needing to query it twice. But
I think we could add a string field to all the records and populate it. We just didn't think of a necessity there to do so. There is nothing technically preventing us from doing it.
Fair enough. Is there a consistent name for that? Or should I just leave that as a to-do for you? Or a to consider?
To consider, you mean that I also should think about whether we need it or not, or just to think of a name and add it?
Yeah, like, or would they always be string query? I think everything's keyed by a string.
Yes.
So, like, string query feels like it would be appropriate to all the records. There we go, records. But if DNS uses a different word for it, then
I can check what the DNS RFCs call it exactly. The thing is, I think DNS just used the word name, but that might be too generic.
Chad is asking, can all of these records, do we need the DNS prefix? So looking at it, I feel like PTR is the only one that's kind of weird, but we shouldn't really be using that anywhere else in .NET. But I feel like MX record is that feels like DNS to me.
I think we can remove it.
DNS result is good because otherwise your type name is just result. But
yeah.
Okay. removed that.
I'm not really opposed to removing the DNS prefix here.
Okay. TTL. I couldn't find in the spec what the size of that is. Is that
It's 4 bytes.
so that means technically we would need uint because somebody could specify forever.
Yes.
But I do think it would be better if we just make it time span. That way we don't have to. That way we don't have this is a unitless thing, but according to the spec, TTL is seconds. So if it's int or uint, I think we should name it TTL in seconds, or we just make it time span. And I think time span can hold all uint seconds, so it solves the scale problem.
Okay, I guess time span is equivalent information. Sure.
Yeah, I mean it'll always have a to the second resolution, but I still think it seems helpful. Okay, so I need to replace int TTL with timespan TTL. And same for the negative. Okay. Yeah, so I'll leave a note about consider adding a name or query property to each record. All right. And anybody else have anything while I'm making some bulk edits?
Is
Are
there a
we-
reason why we shouldn't seal the types, the two classes at least?
Yeah, it's probably a good idea.
Which types?
Options class and the DNS resolver. Yeah, those two.
Sorry, I thought I heard, is there a reason we shouldn't unseal them? Was the suggestion
yeah.
actually to seal them?
They should be sealed. Most likely.
Yes.
I don't see a reason why we would want to allow deriving from them, at least from the start.
Okay, sealed resolver and sealed resolver options. Okay, I a little bit had a thought of should DNS resolver have a static singleton of default resolver, but that really is just the static DNS class, so
Yes.
I don't think we really need that.
And are we doing the overload for the resolve PTR async with the IP address or just the string?
Yeah, I think we can add the
We can
overload.
have both.
Yeah, I agree. It makes sense for me to have the IP address overload as well.
And yep, I'm almost to the point that I can add that. That's PTR. So presumably we would call that IP address address instead of IP address name.
Yes.
But then I think string name is still the give me the name in the ARPA format.
Mm-hmm.
So the distinction between name, host name, and service name is intentional for all of these?
Yeah, I was just looking at that, and we probably can unify them to be the same, in which case name might be most fitting. I don't really have strong preference here, name or host name.
I would go with name.
I can't think of any time that name is going to get misunderstood, so it seems fine.
It's called domain name service, so
Yeah.
kind of makes sense.
Yeah, the existing methods seem to use hostname or address, which is worse.
Yeah, well, because I feel like it did some like, does this look like a dotted quad sniffing?
Yes.
So. All right. Some people in chat, even though chat is what brought up, can we get rid of the DNS prefix on the record type? Someone's now suggesting put them back. So how do people really feel?
I don't have a strong preference.
I'll put it here so people see it. Like the thing that you get back is a result of CNAME record, and then CNAME record, just down here somewhere, has here's the other name to use.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know that putting DNS on it really helps, and I can't think of any time that this is really going to conflict with some other namespace, which is the time that we would want the disambiguator on it.
Yeah, I agree. Without the DNS, it kind of looks better.
One thing I noticed that when you added the synchronous methods, you get the async suffix.
It just means I haven't finished editing these.
Oh, okay. Right.
But I would have missed it, so thank you. Async replaced with nothing. Boop, 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 boop. All right.
Sorry, let's wait for a sec. For the sync versions, are we passing in a cancellation token?
I had taken it out, but we can put it back in if we think that there's a sensible place that the cancellation token could have come from, like an abort button.
I honestly don't know. Yeah, I was just curious. It does seem like a thing you could cancel, even synchronously,
But some of these would be like, just ask the OS, and if it doesn't have a cancelable state, then now we would have an API that says it takes cancellation token but doesn't respect it.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how is it on sockets if you have a pending receive, how you cancel it.
you can dispose the socket.
Yeah, you
Pretty
kill the
sure.
socket. That's probably the
Yeah.
only way to cancel it.
Yeah, probably.
I would probably not have cancellation token on synchronous methods.
Yeah, if we think it's meaningful, we can add it later.
Sure.
Are we saying that
I'm
we really
honestly
want?
on the fence about the sync methods altogether, but sorry.
Meha?
Yeah, are we saying that we really want the sync methods or just pre-approving the API shape? Because I would feel that we should just not add them until we really have a reason to add them.
So there's the general, every time you think you want an async, somebody is going to be in a sync callback. So if you can do better than them doing sync over async, then you should do so. And we also have the existing static methods on DNS have synchronous options. So it's weird that someone would have to change to async just to get the TTL.
I think we can do synchronous, like better synchronous than just like get away to get result. On
Right, it was
Windows
just
and
that we
Linux.
wouldn't do it, right? Like if it
Yeah.
was sync over async under the covers, we just not
Yeah,
ship the
yeah, but
API.
I think we actually can use on Windows the API can be synchronous. You actually have to opt in for it to be asynchronous. On sockets, we have synchronous calls to send and receive.
So will the resolve addresses be twice as long because we won't do it in parallel, or we will now block threads?
The synchronous one is probably going to take twice as long.
Yeah, which is already
Well,
reason
even
to
with
never
sync,
use it.
okay, it's UDP though, right? Like even with sync APIs, you can like send 2 messages before calling receive, and then you get them in the order you get them. Pretty
Yes,
sure.
but that's going to be complicated unless we like duplicate lots of the code to interleave those two executions.
Which is a reason just not to do it altogether. If you
Yeah,
know, just
like-
focus on the one version that
I
Yeah,
am
but-
I am very much supportive of not having synchronous methods for this, but I also see the argument why somebody would want them.
we could just add them later. I think, like, given that it would be non-breaking to add them later, and we're like questioning the utility, like, well, why not wait for someone to ask?
I ask.
Okay, like, I mean, the question is, like, I know we introduced the sync APIs for like HP clients, so like if under the covers we could use these and we need them anyway, then like maybe.
Yeah. If all this was doing was adding async to a thing that was already sync, then I wouldn't care that the resolver was async only. But it feels really weird to me to say we're adding this feature so that you can access the DNS TTL, but that's only available to async callers. Like, given the existing sync methods, that is my care.
Okay.
We would now have 3 of the 4 covered. Let's just cover the 4th one. So, chat has asked, is there a rule regarding how servers is going to be handled? Is it round robin? Is it try one till it fails? Is it random every time? Is it try all of them and take the first answer? Or is that an implementation detail?
It's going to be implementation detail because, for example, Windows DNS Query X API does not really give us a choice or configuration, for example, of what kind of timeout and back off or whatever, what kind of strategy is going to use. So we just give it a list of servers and say go and hope that it will finish in a reasonable time. So we either will try to replicate it on the other ones or figure out something that we are happy with. And right now we don't have any specific ideas that we want to commit to. But it's probably going to be some combination of like round robin and try X times before failing.
Yep. And bringing up the interface question, this one I see you're allowing settable, at which point iList makes sense, though the FDG does recommend against settable collections, but I think we feel that that's wrong in options types. So there we go. Had the whole conversation.
And iList now has a default, right? Or always did for when you use the collection expressions. So we're good there.
Yeah, I just noticed that it's an iList. It may be an artifact from some work in progress version. Do we want to have it as a list, or is iList okay?
Since
I'm
it's
fine with it as a
settable,
list.
iList is okay if you're saying somebody can
Okay.
have had a custom list type, or you can say list and say that you don't care to support custom list types. Either way's fine. Assuming you're doing DNS round robin, all you care about is it has a count and an indexer.
Yes.
So, is the idea that the DNS resolver type is supposed to never cache?
And in the first version, yes. We might change that in the future. For now, we will be relying on the caching done by the OS. So Windows resolver is caching, systemd is caching as well. Until we see a need for caching on the managed side, we will probably not implement it. One of the problems with caching DNS stuff is that you also have to monitor network changes and whatnot. So if you suddenly your Wi-Fi goes out, you have to invalidate most of the cache. So we prefer not to deal with the complexity in the first version.
Right. I'm just trying to figure out what's the sensible way to tell it you want to flush cache. Do you have to flush the whole cache? Would you add a flush address, flush SRV, flush MX, and all of them taking a nate? Like, if the resolver is always supposed to just do work and caching is supposed to be at a higher level, then that's easy. You don't have to deal with it here. So I'm just wondering what your evolution plan is.
Like, if we decide to add caching, then if we expose some method to flush cache, it will probably flush everything. I am not sure what would be the scenario where I would want to keep part of the cache and flush the rest.
Well, these aren't static methods, right? Like you could just create a new instance of this.
Yeah, like we are looking at the instance resolver. For the static one.
Yeah, I'm just
there are static ones. Yeah.
It's the sort of like, I know I just changed I'm doing the AB VIP swap thing on my service, and like I want you to just like right now force refresh my DNS name, but like every other DNS name, I'm fine with it being in the cache. Like that's really the scenario of like go force request one record. But
so
that feels more like a person on the command line and not a tool thing, so maybe it doesn't matter.
Do other programming runtimes maintain their own DNS cache, or is that more of like an OS level, like I do that in my system resolve D or whatever?
I don't really have data on this. I wonder what Rust does, because Rust ecosystem is famous for implementing stuff from scratch, and they probably have their own DNS implementation, but I would have to look it up.
Well, because this is famously something that's normally part of the C standard lib and not not a syscall or anything, right? Like DNS resolution. I don't know. A lot of environments hand roll it, I know.
But yeah, I think I've convinced myself when you know you care about VipSwap, you probably didn't have code. Like, I guess a tool that is itself the go tell Azure do a VipSwap and then like keep hard requesting until DNS gives me an answer. But that's
Yeah, I mean, if you for
That's niche.
sure don't want any caching in the DNS resolver level, I imagine you could always new up a new DNS resolver.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, I'm just again, it was a thought experiment of making sure we're not missing something in the shape right now. But if you think caching at the resolver level would be flush or just a global flush at the resolver level, or you just dispose it and make a new resolver, then that's fine too.
Or you just never cache at that layer, right? Because like ultimately this is going to be used by things that, like by HP client, which is going to decide how long to use the records it gets.
Yeah, like I sort of
It's
wonder
the
if
thing
a
doing the
caching
caching.
layer should just be a DNS cache that like
Right.
you
Yeah,
build a
I
DNS
definitely don't
cache
think it should be built into
and
this.
give it a resolver, and that this
Yeah.
layer should just always ask questions. Now DNS is caching at every level, right? Like
That's exactly it.
'cause
That's
it's
the most annoying / useful thing about it.
right, but it's like even if like this making a request live means it's asking the OS live, which means the OS cache times out, then the OS asks its reported name server, which if it's cached in the name server, it's not going to go ask the authority. It's just going to return it from its
Of course.
cache. So like flush in DNS is an ambiguous term. So
Right. Like people would be wondering, like, are you asking to flush the OS level cache if there is one and all that? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, but having a custom DNS cache type seems like a thing that would be higher level. So
Right. And there's like so many knobs I think you'd want once you
Indeed.
introduce caching.
So okay. And I guess just out of curiosity, is an empty servers list in the options going to be use the system configured DNS server list, or is it going to be an error?
I see arguments for both.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's just, do you know what you want it to mean, and are you going to copy the list, or are you going to hold a lazy reference to the list?
Yeah, I would probably like have empty servers be an error, ideally, but I could be convinced otherwise. It's just my first thought on it.
Right, because the interesting thing about that one, so just thinking it through right now, and actually it's changing whether or not this should default to null, is in the future if you added the DNS transport option,
right,
and all that you're saying is I want you to use DNS over HTTPS instead of DNS over UDP, like what would you pass for servers to say, I don't know what servers you should use, I'm just telling you which protocol to use?
Yeah, the way I thought about the extension to use different transports would be that the DNS transport type itself would have the knowledge of the server somehow embedded in, because otherwise then the transport would have to be somehow a factory to tell it, hey, give me a connection to this server. And then it suddenly starts becoming quite complicated. So
Oh, but that seems like, again, this is just a suggested sketch of a future, that
Yeah.
wouldn't then be a single transport, that would be a transports collection. But then how does transport, I guess you had the comment, if it's set, use the transports and not the servers.
Yes.
Fair enough. All right. With there only being one type on options, it's obvious right now if somebody's using the options, they care about the servers. I'm just wondering, is that going to evolve well? But I guess you could always take no servers from throwing to not throwing in the future if you wanted.
Right. That sounds like something that should be should not be breaking.
Right. But as with all options types, you do have the question of do you drain this list when somebody passes it to you, or do you hold just a reference to the list? So what happens if someone mutates it later?
Yeah, I guess making a defensive copy is probably the approach. So that we don't have some weird behavior when somebody modifies it and we are just iterating over it.
Mm-hmm. So, but okay, so it sounds like leave it defaulted to a thing somebody can call add on, meaning it's marked as non-nullable and it starts with the value. But the names on these.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked it up, and it looks like the original name for error code 3 was namespace error. Certainly, I am more familiar with NX domain. You have the comment here, NX domain. So what names do we really want to use here?
I thought that the RFC called it the name error.
Yeah, the trouble is newer RFCs called it NX domain. So both answers exist in RFC.
Let's call it NX domain then, if that's what everyone's familiar with.
If it's the one that's more folks are familiar with, then
It's like
sure.
8020 clarifies what NX domain means. And
non-existent domain is what the AI overview says it stands for, which sounds right.
And
so if you wanted to expand it,
but 883 just says
name error.
Name error.
Yeah. A lot of things say non-existent domain, but I don't know if any of it's normative. That's definitely what it stands for, though.
Yeah, that's because
I mean, this RFC says non-existent a lot.
That's because 2308 2308 says 1035 decided to start calling it NX domain. And then this is now talking about how NX domain and no data are different from each other. So it does seem that by like the 90s, it was called NX domain. So the more modern interpretation of this error code would be me to figure out where my browser window went. Would be, I think, replacing.
Yep.
So big N, little x, big domain.
Sure. Like I thought name error just read a little bit better, but if NX domain will make it more understandable for folks who work with DNS, then I don't have an opposition to that.
Yeah, I mean we can add both if we wanted. Enums are friendly like that. So,
or we can just say non-existing domain.
You could say that. I like NX domain. I think we can get rid of the name error.
Okay, let's keep NX domain and get rid of name error.
I'm fine with either, but I like NX domain.
Although it's weird that NX domain is the only one that has abbreviation in it.
I'm fine with non-existent too. One word, don't capitalize the E. ENT. I had to look it up too.
Yep.
Only because I'm looking at the RFC. Yeah. It could have been that or ANT as far as I'm concerned, but it's ENT.
Yes. Well, I mean, in RFC 2308, they use non-hyphen existence, which would be capital E, but I don't. Wiktionary non-existent. Wiktionary says non-existent is a word by itself. Okay.
Yeah.
That's my go-to source for the
slight
language.
preference for NX domain, but if people prefer spelling it out, this is fine.
On the one hand, I know that NX domain is what anyone who's ever worked with DNS is going to know the error as. On the other hand, I acknowledge, I think it was Radek who said it's literally the only abbreviation in this enum.
I don't think anyone's going to get confused by it either.
I also don't think anyone would get confused. If we really have a concern here, then I would suggest exposing both NX domain and non-existent domain, and then that probably causes us to say we don't want to do that. NX domain is fine.
Right. I would lean towards NX domain, yeah, as like that.
Yep. And 100% of the one people who gave an opinion on chat also say NX domain. So
And
it
fair
is
to
the
say
odd
this is
man
like a
out.
low-level API, so
Yeah,
not
Yeah.
a lot of people will see this enum, right?
right. It's fine.
Since we are looking at it, the backing type for the enum is U short. I remember that there were last time we did something like this, we had to select the CLS compliant false attribute on some API. So do we want to make it just normal short, or are we fine to just annotating the API with whatever we need to silence the compiler?
You're not supposed to have unsigned enums. Is that what it's complaining about?
I think it's complains.
yeah, CLS doesn't like U short or U long or U end.
Yeah.
Because I think it's because the COM spec just has an integer, like it's just I8, I4, I2, and I don't know what they call byte, but it's bytes can't be signed or shouldn't be signed, and everything else should be in COM.
Yeah, like I heard that we don't care about CLS anymore. So
I've
Yeah.
heard that as well.
Yeah, we don't.
We don't really care about it, but we do care about consistency.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. So, I mean, if the record needs, like, if you're planning on using the record for blitting, which you probably are, then the size type matters. So we could say short, or we can say U short, and then you'll just have to smack a CLS compliant false on probably the enum and maybe the properties that return it. But
so if we do care about this blitting across an interop boundary, it has to match the signedness of the underlying C type. So if the C type is unsigned, then this has to be unsigned to be blittable. Because there are platforms, including macOS, which require you to sign extend the type to pass it in register, which means that if you do short, it is sign extended to fit into an int32 register rather than 0 extended like it should have been. And while
there you
these
go.
particular set of values don't matter because the sign bit is 0 in either case, it does matter for interop compatibility that you match the signedness explicitly.
Assuming that we ever get things that would be signed if it was signed, like, or would be negative. But yeah, it seems right to match what it is at the OS level. So if it's unsigned,
I don't think there is. I don't think there's an API we plan to consume which has this as unsigned, but I wouldn't worry about blitting this specific type.
like on a socket though, like you're not expecting to pass it via register. Like you're expecting to split it to like a UDP packet or something.
Yeah, I expect to write to like serialize it to a message and then write it to a socket.
Right, but you'll control the serialization in that case. It won't
Yes.
be interop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean so the general answer with enums is unless you have a reason to pack it, which saying that this is controlled by a spec that says it's only a 2-byte value would be, I guess, a reason. Our general answer is pretend you have no opinion, which means be signed int 32. But saying by spec this can never be bigger than 2 bytes, so we're just going to tell you that here, that's fine.
I think it's fine.
So I think, yeah, ushort's fine, and smack CLS compliant false everywhere you need to make it work.
Okay.
It's possible your whole assembly says CLS compliant false, which, if so, grats. But yeah, I expect you'll have to put it here and on this property. So whatever. All right. Anybody have anything else for this one?
For the resolver, do we need the synchronous disposable if we think there's a reason to do it async?
I mean, it's same as why it has sync API, plus we also have even though we didn't make iasync disposable extend idisposable, we believe that they should.
Yeah, if we didn't add the sync APIs, I'd be like, yeah, just leave dispose async. But if we expect
Which
us
I
to have
think
synchronous callers,
still shouldn't. Like I put another reason in the comments, like if we expect this to extend this over QUIC or over HTTP, like that would already do sync over async under the cover.
unless it's
So you just
HTTP
don't sync.
1.1, and then we have sync. But yeah, maybe, I don't know. I was always skeptical of having like the synchronous methods in HTTP client too, for that matter. So I'm with you.
Yeah, I don't like it either.
Any plans for surfacing extended DNS errors from RFC 8914?
Not yet, because then we need to also support extended DNS like in sending, and we have it. We can have it in the future, but not in this first proposal.
Yeah, chat pointed out that strings is a weird name for that property on TXT record. What's it called in the spec? I would call it values here.
Then let's call it values. I don't think this one specifically has a name, because the RC just says that it's like a list of
Text record. Yeah, a list of values. Yeah.
RC DNS. What is it?
Data. There's data length, text length, or TXT length.
Yeah, values is a good neutral name.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and similarly with the ushort port, ushort priority, and ushort wait, you're going to get CLS compliant errors on those two. Just because it's ushort, ulong, or sbyte, or uint in public API is CLS compliant false. So.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And yes, ushort remains for port and priority because those are the sizes they have from the spec. At least I assume those are the sizes they have from the spec.
Yes.
And this is all intended to be low-level stuff, so somebody needs to be familiar with what an unsigned number is.
And I assume the TTL is generally 32 bits signed or whatever.
We changed those the timespan.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, that's
'Cause,
fine.
yeah, he said it was 4 byte unsigned.
Okay.
So rather
Yeah,
than changing it to UInt, we changed it to time span.
It's gonna in theory be like all ones. Although like
8 billion seconds, which is probably the end of the universe.
But time span gives you full fidelity on that
Yep.
naturally. So yeah, it's fine.
All right. Anything else aside from people who hate synchronous methods?
Always.
Going once.
Almost as much as you hate the eye. No,
And async methods.
It'd be nice if you didn't need them.
I only ever write console
you didn't have
programs.
the color problem.
Async just gets in my way.
Having to ask what color is your function is in the way.
All right. Sounds like we are happy. So thank you for staying late, everyone in Europe. And
thank you.
everyone Pacific, it's lunchtime. So yeah, thanks everybody for joining us in chat. I know it's sometimes feels like a drudge when we only get through 1 or 2 issues, but I think people were commenting the whole time, so and your feedback is definitely appreciated. We'll see you next Tuesday at our same .NET time on our same .NET channel, and hopefully by then API Review.NET's back up and running. Until then, I think German was today, so Auf Wiedersehen.